Hey, happy Friday. How are you? I am Chris Robin, aka at Detroit Beastie. That is Dave, Dictator Dave, Regimented Dave, however you want to put it, at Corporal Eddie, here with Fantasy Six Pack live on this Friday evening to talk DFS Den. I don't know about you, but I'm still all whacked out because of the holiday. I know it's Friday because we're live and we got the graphic and we're going to talk DFS, but I thought it was Monday when I woke up, and then I thought it was Thursday. And it's like people are saying, "Are you drinking? Are you on drugs?" I said, "No, not anymore. I
Both.
used to, not anymore. Not anymore. Not much, really." But Dave, how are you? I feel like we've done this. Seriously, I feel like we've done this every day. I almost have, but this is a new live broadcast. We're going to be talking Week 17, and as I shared one of Keith's stacked tweets, anything goes. Week 17, week 18, there's nothing that's off limits. I normally live my life that way. And when we play DFS, I do the same thing. But this week specifically is off the charts nuts, and it's only going to get crazier next week. So, Dave, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I really like this week because we've had so many, small slates, 9 games, 10 games, 11 games. And I hate that because I like options. Options, I think for somebody, especially somebody who knows what they're doing, right? And I would like to think that we're in that group. But somebody who knows what they're doing, more options the better. It allows, for more creativity, it just allows you to do more things. And so like last week, I had a bad feeling because it was such a small slate. I wouldn't say I hated my cash lineup, but I didn't like it. And we didn't cash. And not only do we not cash, honestly, we didn't really get that close. There was no nail biting. And usually when my lineup doesn't cash, it's usually like close, and it's like something happens, or and this week it just was not happening, and it was clear that it was not happening. And
And
so it just was what it was.
what's wild is on it must have been Sunday, right? Christmas Eve, because I was at my uncle's. We were getting ready to eat and hang out, and there was a 4:05 p.m. slate that I was looking forward to. You know how
Yeah,
much I dig those smaller slates, the two
yeah,
gamers. I don't like single game slates per se, although I do the videos and people watch them. I love a good 2 game, 3 game slate. And then at 4:05, I knew, I set an alarm. I started to edit I wanted to edit the 4:05 slate that I had going about quarter 2. I was entering all week, and I was not able to edit it. And then all of a sudden, FanDuel just completely canceled the entire slate and put the money back in my account. So they canceled every entry I had.
so must not have
And
failed, and they're cheap fucking bastards.
that's what happened. Yeah, I
I
didn't.
hate I hate FanDuel so much, Chris.
The
You don't even know.
overlay, people were saying the overlay this, overlay that. I
Yeah.
spent at least 2 or 3 days entering contests because I saw, and I went nuts. You know how I am with my notes on a main
Yeah.
slate. 3 games, I get every combination I can think of, and then boom, everything was canceled and it was out of there. But then we had the interception. I was editing when Minnesota threw the interception, it sealed the North, so everything was good. Christmas Eve was great, and here we are. So when we talk about Week 17, there's a lot to discuss, but there's a very little to discuss in the same sense. First of all, I want to mention, I'll toss it to you, and you could talk quarterbacks till the cows come home. But it's weird. It's weird, but it's not. It's everything is up is down and east is west. The Denver Broncos are sitting what's his name, Russ Wilson, for the rest of the season. Everybody's like, well, why? What the heck? Right? They had a nice run, right? They won 5 games in
Mhm.
a row. Then they had that nasty 3 game road stretch where they went 1-2. Houston beat them, and then the Lions beat them up pretty bad. But I get the decision to sit Russ Wilson. You're paying him a ton of dough, and it looks like Cortland Sutton is going to be inactive with a concussion. So I have Jarrett Stidham, however you want to put it, highlighted in my notes. So he's going to be talked about. But where do you want to start at quarterback? This week, obviously, it looks as though Jalen Hurts is the most expensive guy on FanDuel, at least. What are your initial reactions at quarterback?
Well, I'm trying to get it all uploaded here, but yeah. First, let's hit some comments here. We got our boy Ron, who, I think people see almost every week now, dropping something in there. So season's greetings, Ron, and then Mister can't show up on time himself, Mister AJ Applegarth. Sup, homie? Happy holidays to you. I'm sure AJ meant to post that at 7:30, but he can't. He can't be on time, and I love him nonetheless. But quarterback, yeah, Jalen Hurts really does stand out to me this week. I mean, there are some big name quarterbacks. I mean, if we look at, just if I'm going, salary wise, just from top to bottom here, we got, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Tua, Justin Fields, CJ Stroud. So there's a lot of names, but value wise, Hurts really stands out. Hurts really stands out to me. But there are a couple of cheaper options as well that I don't hate. You mentioned Stidham. He is a good value. He's got a great matchup against the Chargers, but I don't know. I don't think so. Especially now you say Sutton's going to be out. Now I'm good. Like, I'm fine, right? Jacoby Brissett was kind of interesting just because how much Washington likes to throw the ball. He's a decent value, but same thing, right? If I was going to punt, I don't hate Tyrod Taylor.
No, Tyrod is definitely in my notes and in bottom of the barrel that was published. He makes for a he for cash purposes, it's wonderful. You know what you're going to get out of Tyrod.
Yeah,
he's a safe play, and for cash, it's great. And when you look at Tyrod in that game in general, for stacking purposes, it's beautiful. Keith mentioned Tyrod and Slayton by name in that article, in his stacks article, and I even tweaked it a little bit myself where it's Tyrod, Slayton, and I added in Wandale as well, and then ran it back with Kyron and a little bit of Demarcus Robinson, who we talked about, and it looks like he's the apple of Matthew Stafford's eye, but who isn't right now? Stafford's on a effing heater, but that's what we're going to get, from Matthew Stafford this time of the year.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, I've just got Jalen Hurts locked in at this point. You know how I feel about those cheat code quarterbacks who can, do it on the ground. And, we joke about it, or maybe, we don't joke about it, but people joke about the tush push, brotherly shove, whatever. That really does add value because how many touchdowns does he get, throughout the course of the season because of that? How many drives get extended because when it's 3rd and 1, might as well be 1st and 10. Like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, the value is there. And then the matchup is pretty good. Arizona 23rd schedule adjusted fantasy points to quarterbacks. And it's even better, 27th over the last 6 weeks. And Tyrod's in a similar-ish type boat, right? Like, he can get you some of those hidden extra points because, he can do stuff with his legs as well. Rams 28th schedule adjusted fantasy points to quarterbacks. It really does amount to he's a punt, right? So if I got 15 points from him, which I think he will get, I think he's a fine play. It's just a matter of kind of which route you want to go. And I'm actually taking, I wouldn't call it a unique route, but I am taking a specific approach here this week. And we'll obviously get into it. And you would think that approach would mean I would be playing Tyrod Taylor. However, I am locked into Jalen Hurts, and we'll get into a little bit more why that's significant when we get to other positions. But what do you got going on for QBs?
Yeah, Easton Stick. I mean, Easton Stick sticks out like a sore thumb to me. The Chargers are going into Denver. Denver right now, 21st overall against opposing quarterbacks. It looks as though Denver is just, they've closed up shop for the season, right? If Sutton, let's hope he gets better, because these concussions nowadays are nasty and they're sick. I mentioned it last. It feels like it was just yesterday with Michael Pittman Jr. having the concussion relapse and Hayden Hurst having amnesia with his concussion. So these are no jokes. And if a guy, we've seen it happen a lot this season, if a player has a concussion in week A, more than likely week B, they're sitting out. So I think that is the good cause and the good case here. And we're seeing it more and more. And if you go watch a football game, if there is a hit, and a guy just stays back in there, they'll call the play dead and they'll get in there and get the guy out. The NFL has made, made it a point of emphasis, and I applaud them for that. Their officiating stinks a lot across the board, but that's a conversation for another time. But concussions are, in the forefront right now, as they should be. But as we get back to the Chargers in Denver, I think Easton Stick and the Chargers, not that they're either team are going anywhere, but you look at Easton Stick, this offense in general looks completely different. I was pleasantly surprised when you weren't with me in bed when I was watching the Chargers primetime game, but their offense looked completely different than when Staley was the head coach. And there was a moment in time when Staley, Brandon Staley was the savior. He was like a Dan Campbell or a Vrabel guy. They're going to put him in and boom, he's going to have success from day one. He's ousted, and now the Chargers, the offense, the way they're playing like there is no tomorrow. And that's what this week 17 and week 18 kind of is. It's kind of like a preseason in reverse. And when you look at Easton Stick, only 6'8" on FanDuel, 5'1" on DraftKings, 260 passing yards, well within the realm of possibility. And now when they're using him and they're flipping the ball to Eckler and Spiller and Josh Kelly are involved. I mean, everybody is in play here. I love Easton Stick, not only for his arm, but his legs, because I have him 25 to 30 yards. It is basically, I have Easton Stick 25 yards rushing on the ground is an absolute lock for me this week. You can put it, in any parlay you want. And what are the chances one of those is a touchdown? So to me, right now, Easton Stick is my favorite GPP quarterback. Second is Tyrod Taylor, who's highlighted. And I have, Jarrett Stidham. We talked about him briefly. And Bryce Young, the young kid again, he had a great week last time out. And maybe he's gaining a little bit of confidence. And to be honest with you, in my sticky notes, that's one of the stacks. I had like this, it's not an epiphany to stack. We talk about it all day. But I said, you know what? Before we do the Friday broadcast, instead of reading bottom of the barrel and, this isn't the thing that we turn in, just write some stack ideas down. And Bryce Young came to mind. Carolina's playing in Jacksonville right now. Jacksonville 28th against quarterbacks. And you can get Bryce with DJ Shark and Mingo and Hubbard. Those four guys are very cheap in a nice matchup. And again, there's nothing to lose for Carolina. You know what I mean? So to me, the young kid, little confidence. If I'm not mistaken, he had his first 300-yard passing game last week. So to me, Bryce Young, the young kid, let's get it rolling. But to me, it's Stick, Tyrod, Jarrett Stidham, and Bryce Young. And again, if you want the rest of it is already out, bottom of the barrel, the quarterbacks portion of it all. But Aiden O'Connell, Levis is going to be back. So there's a ton of options. And God help me, Mason Rudolph has even made that list because Pittsburgh's playing Seattle. And that Mason Rudolph gives them the best possibility to win, given the fact that he just I don't know. There's all these quarterbacks playing the year of the backup quarterback that they just don't care. And I mean, maybe that's the best policy. You get a guy that's your quarterback and say, here, this is what we're gonna do, and whatever you feel like doing, you just do, and you get the best results. So as we move on to the running backs, Christian McCaffrey's on the main slate. He's $11,000 on FanDuel. I don't know. I'd have to look back, but I don't even need to do that. I think that is the most expensive a running back has ever been on FanDuel in the length of time I've played. And it's been since day one in the late summer of 2009 when they created it. So McCaffrey is $11,000 on FanDuel, and the matchup is as sweet as pie. They're in Washington. Yep. Washington is 28th against running backs. So you hit me with your McCaffrey death taxes thing. And where else are you going at running back, Dave?
So if we talk DraftKings, I was looking it up as you were mentioning it, right? He's 9,600 on DraftKings, which is expensive. But I was scrolling back, and in 2019, for the entire second half of the season, he was over 10,000 with a peak of 10,500. And his salary is only 100 more than it was last week. And he's this 9,600 as I'm looking. I mean, he had an 8,700 week for some reason. But other than that, he has been pretty much right around 9,000, low 9,000. So he's a little bit priced up, even for him, but I mean, nothing ridiculous. And the matchup is ridiculous. So not only would I be playing CMC just usually in general, but he goes up against Washington, who is dead last, and they are dead last by a lot against running backs. And not just on the season, but also here over the last 6 weeks. And, I'll say the moniker because whatever, right? But death taxes and playing CMC when he's healthy and cash. And so that's where we find ourselves in. Just like with Jalen Hurts, I am locking in CMC. I'll be dead honest, and I don't do this very often, but I'm locking CMC in my MME lineups as well. So every lineup I have this week will have CMC because this, I think, is just an example of good chalk. I don't know, for example, I don't know what Tyrod Taylor at his ownership percentage is going to be, right? I have a feeling it might not be too bad because he's going to be probably the cheapest starting quarterback, at least on DraftKings, the cheapest starting quarterback available. We don't love the Giants' weapons necessarily, but I mean, he's in a good spot. So if Tyrod Taylor was going to be, at let's say even 2/3 the ownership of CMC, then I would say, well, I'm not playing Tyrod Taylor. That's not good chalk. I can find other similar positioned quarterbacks as far as ceiling value. I can find other guys that I can play. Easton Stick, right? If I can play Easton Stick at, a fifth the ownership, I'll just take my chances. And so that's how I look at good chalk, bad chalk. And I know that was I just kind of went off there a little bit, but yeah, that's to me the difference, right? Like there's nobody that I can pivot to that is going to provide the same stuff as CMC, right? Even if I could sit there and say, well, I think that, let me just look and see who else is on. Kyron Williams, we'll just say, right? I say, well, Kyron Williams is going to get a bunch of touches and everything too, but it's still not the same situation. It's still not CMC, but yeah, CMC for me in, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We need Pacheco obviously to be out. I'm looking to see real quick. I haven't looked and seen if he's ruled out yet. Pacheco spotted at practice on Friday, so shit, he might even play. But assuming Pacheco were to be out, CEH becomes, I don't know about a no-brainer in cash. I probably will go there because you'll see how few running backs I have. I'll probably go there because he's going to dominate that backfield. And at that point, I can sit there and give you, the schedule adjusted, numbers, but it really doesn't matter when, he's going to get not every touch, but he's going to get like 90% of those backfield touches. I don't really care what the matchup is in that case. His salary and that workload is too much to think about. Zamir White is in a similar situation. I think that Josh Jacobs, if he hasn't been ruled out yet, I think he is very unlikely to play. So Zamir White, again, we need Jacobs to be out. But like I said, I think that's going to happen. And he's a really good play here. He's played the last 2 weeks. He's got 42 touches over that period of time with 70% of the snaps. So he's going to, get the ball. And then the matchup is just phenomenal. Like you say, Chris, it is a beautiful thing. 31st schedule adjusted fantasy points to running backs are the Colts. And then they are 30th over the last month. So not only long form, but also in the short term here as well. So Zamir White's a guy absolutely love in cash this week. I'm sure he'll be extraordinarily popular in MME. I think that may be another example of good chalk, though, however. And then Kyron Williams. I really don't say this in jest, and I know that this is going to be like, oh, well, these are just, these are just key words. You're just trying to, pop off and sound, like you're trying to get clicks here. I really don't say it in jest that Kyron Williams is like CMC light as far as volume is concerned. That dude, I mean, I type out every single week, all about how elite his volume metrics are. And so I didn't even waste my time typing it out this week. So I don't even have it in front of me to read off. But if you don't trust me, that's fine. I always say trust but verify. If you don't trust me, go look. And his numbers are just insane. In the matchup here, 27th against schedule adjusted fantasy points for the Giants. So it is fantastic. In my perfect world, you'll see what I'm doing. I really can't afford to play Kyron Williams. So I'm going to either be playing CMC with CEH or Zamir White or both. We'll just kind of have to see how the cards fall. But those are the only 4 guys I even got in the pool right now.
Yeah, and it is wonderful. And when you look at what I have, just while you're talking, I'm not that I need to verify, but I'm just like interested as well. Personally, I have Kyron Williams 21 to 22 carries this week, and he's a lock for over 100 yards. You're looking at probably 105 to 110. He's averaging about 5.1 yards a carry this year. He's got 9 touchdowns on the ground. He's caught 3 touchdowns. I mean, when he is healthy and active on the field, he is a force to be reckoned with, and rightfully so in this offense. And there's been again, I'd have to look back, but what's the point? There's got to be some sort of a direct correlation when the Rams were kind of like in a lull, and we know Stafford was a little bit hurt or banged up, and then when Kyron Williams came back, it's like boom, they started rolling again, and here we are, with the Rams and Kyron Williams. But when I look at the running backs position here, I'm doing everything you're doing, just the backup, right? So if Christian McCaffrey is playing against Washington, there's going to come a point when, Elijah Mitchell is going to get a handful of targets and touches in the second half, in the late third quarter, in the fourth quarter. And Elijah Mitchell, only $5,700 on FanDuel. And you look at it in like Philadelphia is playing Arizona. I love both of those guys. DeAndre Swift is a little bit too high for bottom of the barrel, but he makes one of my Arizona and Philadelphia that game stack. I would have Swift and Kenneth Gainwell. Kenneth Gainwell, when you look at what he can do, he can catch the ball, he can run the ball, and they're starting to use him a little bit more than they were. It used to be, it was Swift's world, Swift show, do what you got to do, and we move on. But now the Philadelphia Eagles look to be same thing with San Francisco, right? I heard something on the radio early this morning about the NFC, right? And it was like for a while, with the Philadelphia Eagles are bulletproof, no one can beat them, and then they start a little chink in their armor. Same thing. There was a point in time just recently where San Francisco, they're the best team in football.
Yeah.
No one can beat them, but when they're beat up, like when Deebo Samuel is inactive, or and Brock Purdy is not himself, and he's throwing interceptions, there is a little chink in their armor. So again, teams aren't anything can happen any given day, right? So to me, it just leads back into what I was saying. Kenneth Gainwell, I love him in a secondary role against the Arizona Cardinals. Jalen Warren, Pittsburgh is playing in Seattle. Him and Najee Harris have been, that nice 1-2 punch. And if you look back at what Jalen Warren did or did not do on the field, right? You don't get points for blocking, but he absolutely leveled one of I probably was a cornerback or one of the Bengal safeties as Pickens ran into the end zone last week. So Jalen Warren is going to get his targets and touches, and his price tag on FanDuel at least is only $5,700. I mean, I skipped the $6,000 range completely, and I said, you know what? It's week 17. We'll see what we get. I see Justice Hill. Baltimore's playing Miami, and that's a little bit tough of a matchup, but if it's one of those things where if you get what's the old saying, and I'm working this out on the fly, like if you're getting chased by a bear, you only got to be as quick as the slowest guy, right? And when you look at a game like Baltimore and Miami, Lamar is going to wear down Miami's defense, right? And their wide receivers are going to wear down Miami's defense. And then maybe once in a while, Justice Hill will get a carry inside the red zone. Gus will be on the sideline. He's going to get more moves in there because Keaton Mitchell is out. We know that. So I love Justice Hill, the heir apparent to Derrick Henry in Tennessee. Taj Spears is just always pops on my list each and every week. And then I cannot believe, when you look at the Cincinnati at Kansas City game, this game is going to be fun and exciting. And we know we all heard, I don't know if you heard what's his name, Jamar Chase said that they go, what do you think about the Kansas City secondary and their cornerbacks and stuff? And he goes, well, They're nothing special. Like he said, like he absolutely just said that Kansas their secondary and defense does nothing really special. We're gonna be okay, right? And so when you look at that, Cincinnati and Jake Browning, and look at this, Chase Brown. Right, he's been getting so much work, and it's just unbelievable. He catches the football and he's gone. Chase Brown only $4,900 on FanDuel. Samaje Perine as well. If we're going to stack up, Jarrett Stidham, Javonte Williams, what about Samaje Perine, which you mentioned in passing a few moments ago, if I'm not mistaken. And lastly, $4,500, Dearness Johnson. There's something there. Again, Jacksonville's playing Carolina. Most folks will glance right over that game. It's Jacksonville. Is Trevor Lawrence playing? We don't know. I said I liked Bryce Young. And so if we're going to stack up Bryce Young, Shark, Mingo, and all that, throw in a little bit of Dearness Johnson, and we'll see what we get. And again, it's only Thursday. This isn't the final exam. We'll hand everything in Sunday at noon, and we see what we'll get. When you look at the wide receiver position, where you go in Tyreek Hill, I mentioned that Miami-Baltimore game. Baltimore right now, as far as I can see, they're around 9th overall against opposing wide receivers. And Tyreek Hill, $9,800 on FanDuel. Where's your cash head kind of leaning you towards wide receivers this week?
Yeah, so I'll be honest. I've got quite a few receivers here to name, and I'll go as quick as I can though. So Tyreek Hill was not on my radar initially. Now Tyreek Hill's always a guy that I'm super interested in, but I'm already locked into CMC initially. Like that was a no-brainer. I got myself locked into Hurts, so obviously I can't afford Tyreek Hill too. Like that's crazy, right? Well, then Jalen Waddle gets ruled out, and I go, well, shit. Well, now what do I got to do? Do I have to not play Hurts? Because I have to play CMC, right? So do I not play Hurts? And I'm like, you know what? Well, let me at least see what I can do. Let me try to slide all three of these guys in and see what happens. Guess what? I can do it. And it's not that big of a deal. So Tyreek Hill is locked in for me as well. And this is partly because he's healthy. And this is partly because of Jalen Waddle. And, Baltimore isn't the greatest matchup in the world, but, I would say that CMC is matchup proof. I'd say Tyreek Hill is matchup proof. And to a large extent, I would say Jalen Hurts is matchup proof too. So I'm not really worried about that, schedule adjusted data and DVOA. It's Tyreek Hill. There's no Jalen Waddle. What's he going to get? 12, 15, 18, 20 fucking targets? I don't know, but I'm here for it, Chris. Now I've got to save money, and that's why I've got so many wide receivers to talk about. And I won't get too in depth because that, you're kind of, the bottom of the barrel, guy and whatnot. So I'll throw some names. Yeah, it's such a long list because I have to provide so many cheap options. And it's easy to talk about the expensive guys, and this guy, that's easy. But when it comes to the value, you've kind of got to, cover a few more bases. So anyways, I'll go through these relatively quick. We talked about Darius Slayton. I love it. We already know Tyrod Taylor's got a good matchup. Darius Slayton is his favorite target. Rams 27th schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receiver. So like that. Devontae Parker, kind of a tough matchup here. Buffalo 6th in schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. But Parker's been, very consistent and he's been cheap. So over the last 4 games, he has scored between 7.2, 10.5 points. For his price, that's beautiful. I would take the low end of that even and, think that that's a decent play this week. So Devontae Parker, Quentin Johnson, cost and opportunity kind of play. It might well be the wide receiver 1 this week. I don't know. And that alone would put him into cash consideration at his price. Risky, obviously, but we've got to find these punt plays if we're going to jam in Hurts. We're going to jam in CMC. We're going to jam in Tyreek Hill. Like you can't go to the buffet and eat everything, right? And so I'm filling up on crab legs and prime rib, but I still want to have some mashed potatoes and, I want to have some carrots and, whatever here too. So Curtis Samuel, Jacoby Brissett's going to be underneath center. He has looked Samuel's way quite often. San Francisco is pretty good against pretty much everything, but they are vulnerable to wide receivers in the slot where they have given up the 5th most catches. Well, guess where guess where Curtis Samuel happens to line up? Like, no coincidence that, we're talking about him, right? Now, if you don't want to go ahead and play Tyreek, I get it, right? Like, I mean, I get it. He's expensive. So some more expensive options, that you could put in place. Chris Olave. You're going to save some salary here. Olave is, a borderline elite receiver. I mean, if he had a great quarterback, I think we'd be talking about him like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, where no, he's not the best in the league, and nobody's going to say he's the best in the league. But, he's not that far outside of the conversation. Tampa Bay dead last, scheduled adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. So obviously, that's awesome. And he gets eight targets every single week, man. So I mean that's a great cash play. Rashee Rice. How many weeks in a row have we talked about him? Like, what is this? Like 6, 7, 8 in a row? Earlier it was, I kind of think Rice is becoming that wide receiver one. Now it's, hey, Rice is a wide receiver one on this offense. He's actually, in years past, it would be, you say wide receiver one and you go, well, yeah, but I mean, they have Travis Kelce. So wide receiver one doesn't mean what it does on most teams. So let me rephrase it. He's not just wide receiver one on this team right now. He is the number one pass catching option on this team as it stands. So it's not as cheap as he was before, obviously, but 5 straight games of 9 targets or more. Cincinnati, 25th in scheduled adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. So, bingo. Brandon Ayuk, Washington, this defense is absolutely atrocious. You can attack it anywhere you want to. You can play Ayuk along with CMC, no big deal. Makes for a great cash play. It's just, he's not cheap. And then Zay Flowers, hands down, most consistent pass catcher, on the Ravens team. As he ran a route 97% of dropbacks over the past month. So he is on the field. He is out there running routes to get opportunities. Miami, 15th scheduled adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. So not fantastic, but the last 6 weeks they're 19th. That's a little bit better. Obviously, this game could turn into a shootout. I think I like this more of an MME play than a cash play because Flowers isn't really enough to kind of play in place of Hill, if you will, but is also too expensive to play in addition to Hill. So it's kind of in that awkward range where it doesn't really fit cash builds for me this week, but it still is a good play, and I still just wanted to make mention of Chris.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned Curtis Samuel, after all that, and anytime Curtis Samuel is active, he's got to be on the radar, in a GPP, those gadgety guys are always, highly sought after, right? And there's every week it's different, right? I say that the one thing that's not different is that I say it's different every week, if that makes sense at all. And I have these little combo stacks, right, of two wide receivers from the same team. I love the idea of Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. Both of them, they're playing the Rams. I could see that one not necessarily going the Giants' way, but they're going to have to keep pace. And if Tyrod Taylor is going to be steady Eddie or safe guy, safe kind of quarterback here, Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton make for wonderful moves. And again, you can run back Kyron and what was his name, Demarcus Robinson, but I'm getting a little bit off balance here. And then when we look at the New England Patriots, right, New England, the dynasty is over. It's absolutely done. I said that. I got that single game slate video off on Christmas Eve. Like I did that in like an hour and a half, and I spoke briefly about Bill in New England. And I don't even think Bill Belichick's going to be the coach there next year, which is even nuts to think about. But look at the idea of Devonta Parker and even Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas is a shining star. He is one of, if not aside from Ramondre Stevenson, who's been out for more than half the season now. But Demario Douglas, they're playing in Buffalo, Buffalo's 12th, 13th overall against wide receiver, but he's a volume guy, right? And in a game where Buffalo's finally found themselves again, and if they're rolling and they're the king of the AFC, or they're going to challenge for the AFC again, they're going to lay waste to the Patriots in a divisional game. It's already set in stone. Buffalo's going to win, right? But when you look at what the Patriots will want to do, they're going to want to throw the ball, move the ball. Devonta Parker, Demario Douglas, and Parker, only $5,300 on FanDuel. What did I say? Douglas is only $6,100 on FanDuel. And these Arizona wide receivers as well. Arizona, again, they're in Philadelphia. In my notes where I found my DVP, they're dead last against wide receivers. So Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson, both together. And again, you could run Rondale Moore if you wanted to, but he was been he was like the hipster wide receiver last year, where in GPPs where maybe he'd catch up, or not maybe he was. I thought, and this is on the God's honest truth, I thought Rondale Moore was going to be on the same trajectory as Gabe Davis in Buffalo. I thought they were both kind of in the same spot early in their career, where they'd catch a 70-80 yard touchdown pass every couple games. And then now look, Gabe Davis is doing that, but he'll get you goose eggs. But Rondale Moore is just, there's not really nothing there. And the rookie Michael Wilson, when he's healthy and active, has been awesome. And he's only $5,100 on FanDuel. And Greg Dortch is only $5,200 on FanDuel. So you look at the collection of these double sets of wide receivers, and there's a lot of wiggle room there as well, and some one-offs. Well, actually, Jonathan Mingo is not a one-off. I mentioned him last week. I mentioned him here again. If you're going to follow me and we're going to do this Bryce Young, rookie finding his stride, if we're going to do this stack, it's going to be Bryce and DJ Shark and Jonathan Mingo. And Mingo, only $5,200 on FanDuel. Jacksonville, 25th against wide receivers. And lastly, there's again, I have these feelings every once in a while. Most of the time they're wrong. I've been wanting to say this all week. I felt so bad. I can't stop thinking about it. You remember when we did the broadcast, or actually you weren't here. It was the live Saturday one. It was just me and Mike LaPlante. And some guy asked me, he goes, should I start T Higgins or Jalen Waddle? And I told him Jalen Waddle. And I go, it's going to be tough. Watching T Higgins is probably going to have an okay game. Well, he had an 80-yard touchdown, and so I felt so bad, but you got to get back on the horse. I had that feeling. It didn't work out so well, but I have a feeling about the rookie again, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Seattle's playing Pittsburgh, and that feeling is just because of his price tag, right? He's $5,800. We already discussed, you and I had the discussion on air about DK Metcalf. He is he a stud wide receiver? He is, but he's not. But I don't know. But JSN, Seattle's playing Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's 18th overall against opposing wide receivers. So again, I have probably 25 wide receivers written down. I cannot discuss all of them. I cannot write about all of them, but it just gets my mind going in a crazy spot. And when you're live on Friday, it is whatever, right? It's week 17. When we look at the tight end spot, what are you thinking? Where are you going? And to be fair, and I think this is great, I haven't even looked at the tight end position. So as you're talking, this will be my first go around at the tight end position for week 17, Dave.
Yeah. So, I always like to pay down at tight end. Now, that hasn't always worked out so well this year. Like I've said lately, DraftKings at least has done a really good job of, I wouldn't say pricing up tight ends, but they're more expensive than they have been in the past. In years past, spending over $3,000 on a tight end, what was a little bit unusual, and that hasn't been the case this year because, played a lot of Trey McBride, and Trey McBride, even when he was his cheapest, let me go back, even when we were getting him on the cheap, he was still like, 3,500. And that would have been uncomfortable at not that long ago. But this year it's a little bit different. But I do need to save cash because I'm playing Hurts, I'm playing Hill, I'm playing CMC. And so the way it's looking right now, it's looking like Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett is 3,500 on DraftKings, so he's in that spot, right? And it's similar to why Quentin Johnson makes the list because they have to throw to somebody. And honestly, I like Gerald Everett more than I like Quentin Johnson. Just value wise. Difference here is Gerald Everett's also been seeing decent volumes, especially for his price. He's had at least 8 targets, or not at least. He's had exactly 8 targets each of the last 3 games, and he's returned 2.5 times value in 5 straight games. If he does exactly that, I'm good to go, right? Now, if you're not subscribed to the, kind of studs and duds, kind of, Hurts, CMC Hill thing, and you want to go other directions, obviously Trey McBride is still in play. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but I don't want to assume that everyone that watches this watches every single week. And, I kind of skip past Trey McBride and they go, what the hell? Why didn't already talk about Trey McBride a whole lot? So just to get into it real quickly, Trey McBride is a wide receiver as far as I'm concerned. With the stats that he puts up, he is a wide receiver. And not only is he a wide receiver, he is the wide receiver one in Arizona. He just happens to be tight end eligible. So it's, to me, similar to when, you could play starting quarterback Taysom Hill as a tight end. Like, it's not to that level, but I mean, with this guy's volume, it's ridiculous. So he's expensive and he's hard to play in cash. Again, you'd have to sacrifice one of those big three, but that's not that big of a deal because McBride is one of the first cheat codes. I mean, there was Travis Kelce, but he's one of the first cheat codes at tight end. So MME makes for an absolutely fantastic play. Cash is difficult though. And then to give an option in the middle, Isaiah Likely. If you just don't want to go the direction of Everett, or if McBride is just too expensive for you, I think Likely very much is in play. A little bit more than I want to spend. I look over here, he's $4,600 on DraftKings, which is not ideal at all. And I'm glad AJ agrees with me. I mean, AJ's, he might be late all the time, but he knows his tight ends. Am I right? Likely, obviously, a big target getter there with Mark Andrews being out. It's going to be probably impossible for you to get away from Everett since, I'm locked into the guys I'm locked into. But, Likely is interesting to me. But it's Trey McBride if in a vacuum of all things were equal.
Yeah, and when I said that I hadn't looked at tight ends, I was lying because I had forgot before the broadcast, and I could share a photo of this, at a later time when the camera focuses in. Just stacks in red is the game, and then I did the over unders. And in the Denver, the Chargers in Denver stack, I had Everett as my tight end. It's just an unbelievably good matchup. Denver's dead last against opposing tight ends, and he's $5,300 on FanDuel, which is doable, right? And then on DraftKings, you said his price. The one guy who stands out for me, and still Kyle Pitts was supposed to be the cheat code at tight end before the term was even made up of the cheat code, right? And Kyle Pitts, not nearly as shiny and sexy as he used to be, especially coming into his rookie season and even his second year and what he's doing now. But he's finding his way, and I don't mind it when you look at what he's got going on this week. When you look at Kyle Pitts, Atlanta's in Chicago again, the Chicago Bears 21st overall against opposing tight ends on FanDuel. A little bit too high for my, a little bit too expensive for my taste. Wouldn't make the article, but this isn't an article. This is our broadcast. And Pitts, he's $5,700 on FanDuel. On DraftKings, however, he's only $4,100. So you say you like the $3,000 range. I would spend the extra $1,100 or $900 for Kyle Pitts on DraftKings at least. And as we go down the list here, Taysom Hill is in play again. Tampa Bay 29th overall against opposing tight ends. But as I continue to scroll, because again on FanDuel, when you're in that $5,500 range at tight end, it's still a little bit too much. If Michael Mayer is able to play and be active, I doubt it. He's questionable, and projections are zeros across the board. He would make for a nice play. Vegas is playing the Colts 24th overall against opposing tight ends. We just have to find the other tight end. Who is it? Austin Hooper, I believe, would be the move there then, at the tight end position for the Vegas Raiders. And as we just go down again, Tanner Hudson, Cincinnati Bengals, they're playing in Kansas City. He's $5,000 on FanDuel. And again, this guy continues to see 4 to 5 targets a week, regardless. I've said the same shit over and over again each week when we get to certain players, because things don't change, and that's okay sometimes. When things change, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Tanner Hudson sees targets, whether Joe Burrow's the quarterback, whether Jamar Chase is in or out. So to me, they last week, if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm going to try and coin that, get it on a shirt, if I'm not mistaken, there was at least 2 design plays for Tanner Hudson. There was like a screen play they ran directly for Tanner Hudson, and he gained like 13 or 14 yards on it. So again, you're getting a point for the catch, you're getting a point for the point, and a decimal, for the yardage here. But when we keep going down the list, it's a very it's not, there's nothing that stands out. Durham Smythe again. Miami's playing Baltimore, but Baltimore's 3rd overall. But again, the other Miami Dolphins are going to wear down the Baltimore Ravens, studs and starters, and vice versa. The Baltimore Ravens stars and studs are going to wear so you're going to be left with it's just going to be like a battlefield where it's like the Durham Smythes of the world. And who else did I say? One of the I don't know who the heck it was. I forget. I talk and talk. But to me, the tight ends are very, very fickle, very faint. You could go Noah Fant, only $4,600 on FanDuel. Oh, Austin Hooper, here he is. He's only $4,600, and more than likely, the idea of Zamir White and Austin Hooper wouldn't be a bad move in a game, with an over-under I'm going to guess is probably around, I could find it very easily, but I'm going to guess the over-under is probably around 42 to 44 in that game. So to me, Austin Hooper and Zamir White might make for a nice little 1-2 punch. That's what I got at tight end. It's nothing special. It's nothing crazy. It's realistically, I say it before, you've said it before, seriously, just throw a dart, put names in a hat, pick them out, and I could talk anybody into whatever tight end I wanted to this week.
Yep, when you're talking cheap ones, and again, I'll say it again because, I don't expect that everyone watching this watches every week. If you're just simply punting tight end, you are probably going to have a handful of guys that are all equally interesting. So what I usually say is just simply do want to just correlate with your quarterback if possible. I was going to use the Tyrod Taylor example, but he's got Darren Waller, so that doesn't really work. But if you can, that can be a way to tie break things and say, hey, I got 7 tight ends. I don't know, I'm going to throw them in a hat. But then if you go and say, well, you know what? Let me get an example of somebody here. What's a good value tight end? Kate Otten, right? So if you're playing Baker Mayfield this week because you think he's going to have, a good go at things, and you're kind of debating on what to do. Let's say you're stacking him with Chris Godwin, right? You're stacking with Mike Evans. There's nothing wrong with double stacking him with Kate Otten. Not that you intended on a double stack, but that's a good way to just break a tie and say, well, what do I want to do here? Same thing with the Tanner Hudson. If you wanted to go ahead and play a Jake Browning to save money, you're playing him with Chase, or you're playing with T. Higgins, whatever, right? But then you go ahead and you say, well, I'm going to throw Tanner Hudson in there. He's in my mix. He's in my bag of potpourri here, my potpourri bag of tight ends. So let's go that route. But anyways, I like to say that because I think that really is a great way to approach punting tight ends. And I've said it before, but I like to say it again because I don't know. I like to talk. So defenses, I don't have a real standout defense this week. And I feel like that sucks because a lot of times in cash, there's somebody that's too cheap than what they should be, or, we got a backup quarterback situation. This week, the 4 that I like, I do like the Texans going up against the Titans. That's interesting. They're decently priced for cash. Ravens going up against Miami. The Ravens are a great defense. Miami's obviously a tough go, but we just saw what they did against the 49ers, who, could we really argue that, the Dolphins are a better offense than the Niners? I don't know. And then you take Jalen Waddle out of the mix. Again, they give up 40 points. I don't give a shit. I just need sacks and I need a couple turnovers. Like I don't, score 40. I don't care. I luck into a touchdown, I'm golden, right? The Broncos, going up
Yes.
against your boy Easton Stick here. Broncos are always interesting, and Broncos are even more interesting when they're at home. There is something to that air. And it's not like a Phillip Rivers is going in there or a Justin Herbert, a guy who's played in that environment. I mean, Easton Stick's never
And
been there.
and he's when he the last it was last week when he took off and ran, he fumbled a couple times, and he got it back or it went out of bounds. I don't think he lost a fumble last week, but he did lose possession of the football at least twice from what I've watched. So yeah, anything is possible with Denver, but
Sure.
continue.
And then lastly, if you just, again, I'm playing Hurts, I'm playing CMC, I'm playing Hill for what, the 27th time I've fucking said that.
Yeah.
So if you really need to save cash, I don't hate the Patriots against the Bills. Could they get shredded? Absolutely, they could get shredded. But Josh Allen, we know, is prone to turnovers. I'm looking at the stats here, and it's not that deep. I mean, defenses are so, I mean, I hate to say random, but they're kind of random. But
Yeah.
they have scored at least 5 points in the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks. And one of those was against Buffalo. So again, 5 points is like, well, who cares about 5 points? But 5 points for $2,300 on DraftKings, you're getting 2x, which is whatever, but that's not a bad safety blanket for, let me see if they're the cheapest defense. Oh, yeah,
No,
they're the second cheapest defense, but that's pretty consistent for a really, really cheap defense against a guy who can turn the ball over. I mean, are we shocked if Josh Allen throws a pick six? If he does, they can put up 60 points. I don't give a shit. I need 3 or 4 sacks. I need that pick six, and I've got my value.
And you're golden, yeah. I'm going. Mine are even cheaper on FanDuel. And again, you got the Stones to play Washington. Have at it. They're only $3,000 on FanDuel, and they're probably $200 on draft. They're $2,000 on DraftKings. But I really like the Carolina Panthers this week. They're only $3,400 on FanDuel. Carolina, they're in Jacksonville. Jacksonville is a team that gives up. Last I checked, I think they give up around 4.8 to 5.2 points a game to opposing DSTs. And again, I wouldn't play the Carolina DST in my Bryce Young and Mingo Hubbard stack. That would be silly. That would be crazy. But you can throw Carolina in at DST. It's very cheap and try and squeeze in CMC and Kyron and Tyreek Hill, one of those lineups. The Atlanta Falcons also, they're in Chicago. Chicago right now 26th against opposing DSTs. And again, I'm going to mention that video because I think it still holds true. It still holds value. I don't know what the heck is going on in Justin Fields' mind. Is he going to go all out? So, or is he just going to say, you know what, I'm out of here anyways? He's not going to willingly, throw the game or play like an a-hole or be a jerk. But if he's just going to stand in the pocket or just, flick the ball around and just fool around and not really care, then to be fair, I don't think professional football players do that at all or ever, right? When they're on the field, they have to be 100% and they have to be active, or you will literally have your head ripped off of your neck or your body here. But to me, Carolina makes for a nice play. The Atlanta Falcons and Denver, I had them, underlined as well. Denver, that's going to be a good game. The Chargers at Denver. We'll see what we get. The stick and this new look offense. It's going to be short lived, right? Because next season, who knows what happens. But to me, that's where I'm going. And you could even sprinkle in a little bit of the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to Seattle. They're only $3,600 projection, around 6.5, 6.6, something like that on FanDuel. So to me, it's a very easy week to just pick a very cheap DST. Would I have the Stones to play Washington? Sure, anything is possible, but the cheapest I'm willing to go this week would probably be Carolina, Carolina, New England, or Cincinnati. The Patriots, as you mentioned, they're only 32 on FanDuel. Cincinnati, 33 on FanDuel, and then Carolina right there at $3,400, Dave. So anything else before we split here on this Friday, and we'll do it all over again Sunday at noon.
Yeah, I guess we'll see, right? Like, too often this year, there's been so many injuries. It's been crazy.
You're the backup quarterback.
So often I have had to change my lineup from Friday, which is, I expect it, but sometimes I've had to drastically change my lineup. There have been a couple of weeks where my initial lineup, just, my initial research, just kind of, how things look initially on Tuesday. That lineup has made its way all the way to Sunday a couple of times. And, of course, there's, a minor change here, minor change there. We'll see what happens this week. Like I said, locked into the three studs, top quarterback, top running back, top wide receiver. And I feel comfortable with all the guys I'm playing around them. Usually when you do something crazy like that, maybe you can get two studs in there, and then you're playing a couple things that you're just like not comfortable with, which in MME, that's par for the course, right? In MME, if you don't have something in there that you're uncomfortable with, you're doing it wrong. In cash, you should feel pretty good about every one of your plays. Maybe there's one where you're like, wow, what am I going to do? But even with that being said, having so many of those cheaper options, there isn't anyone in my pool that I'm seriously considering that I'm like, so yeah, I think it's gonna be a great week, man.
It's going to be wild. Yeah. And I can't wait. We'll do it again Sunday. I'll toss it to you for inactives, and you're going to, I think so. You'll have to pick and choose, because it'll take probably 20 minutes or half an hour to go through all of them. So,
just wait till week 18. I don't even, week 18 is just usually a shit show, which for DFS purposes, there can be a huge advantage to it, but you've got to be plugged in. You've got to be plugged in.
There's no one more plugged in than us. Been broadcasted almost every day this week, and so we've been writing and broadcasting. So there's nobody that's more plugged into DFS than us here at Fantasy Six Pack. And if you're still in the playoffs, you're probably looking at championship week. So why don't you use that promo code FF Playoffs? You get 25% off any premium package, and that even will carry you over to DFS all the way to the Super Bowl. There's going to be some sort of DFS content all the way wild card weekend, the championship Sunday. It's going to be fantastic. So
we are killing it in NBA DFS as well.
I forgot. And you'll get all
there's more than just football. There's more than just football, but I know if you're watching this, that's probably where your interest lies. But if you just like money, you just straight up like money, I am in the DFS channels, and we are literally printing money in NBA. It might be illegal how much we're winning. Like, it is absurd.
And baseball is right around the corner. That's all I'll say.
Amen, brother.
So
Amen, brother.
Until we see you Sunday at noon, be good, be safe, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
See ya.